I closed a $50,000 trade. Yeah, she did that. I did that.
Oh my God. Close position. Close.
Holy shit, $50,000.
I was here when that happened?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
My record trade ever. I'm Tori Trades. I've been trading the markets for 10 years now. I'm a futures trader and my strategy is trend lines. By the end of this video, you'll see a full breakdown of how I analyze this trade from start to finish, my entry criteria, my exit criteria, my mindset throughout trade management, and what drove the price of platinum to make such a big move. This is the biggest trade I have ever placed, and I'm going to be sharing everything from start to finish. So before I get into the trade analytics or the trade stats, I want to talk about why this specific trade is important. There's a few reasons. One, this was the first trade of the year. A lot of pressure. Coming into 2025, big goals. January is a scary month to start trading. It sets the tone for your entire year. A lot of heavy psychological things coming into January for the first trade of the year. The second reason this is important is I'm trying to embody this swing trader role or this swing trader persona as much as possible. I made the transition from day trader to swing trader, the 1 hour to the 4 hour time frame in 2023. In 2024, I traded the 4 hour time frame the entire year. I've had conversations with incredibly successful traders that are holding for weeks at a time, if not a month. So I really want to embody that swing trader persona or swing trader mindset. So I have started incorporating the daily time frame a lot more. I would kind of use it just more for added confirmation, but for this specific trade, I found my entry during the daily time frame. Another reason this is important is this is the biggest trade I've ever had, point blank period to date. So exciting. So now let's get into why I placed this trade. So we're gonna go into TradeZella here. Okay, let's go over the stats of this trade. We'll start by the date and duration of this trade. So we're going into the executions here. The entry was on January 7th, and I got in the middle of the night. This was midnight 21. I went long 20 contracts. The duration was 4 days, and then I closed this on the 10th at 9:33 a.m. Okay, and then let's talk about the instrument. Now, I can almost guarantee if you guys have been following me along for a while, you can probably guess what instrument I've traded. It's one of two. It's either going to be crude oil or platinum because that's the only two I've been trading for the past year. This was a trade in platinum. All right, now let's go over the entry and exit price. So the entry price was at 950.49, 20 contracts. I got in around midnight, 12:21 a.m. And then I closed this at 1,000.48 at 9:30 a.m. on Friday, January 10th. Okay, so the total ticks that I was able to capitalize on was 9,999. That's incredible. And then the percentage of profit. So to figure that out, let's go back to the dashboard and we're going to filter this by percentages. So I was able to make 33.86% on this one singular trade. So the total profit and loss here, net profit and loss, we're looking at 49,961. Okay, and now let's go over why I took this trade. Why did this trade stand out to me? So if we zoom out here, we're looking at a daily time frame, and I want you guys to see the downward trend line that we have here. So we've got 1 touch point, 2 touch points. So this is a 2 touch point trade. We got the break of a downward trend line. I thought long positions. Now this is a high risk trade. I got into this trade, and if this didn't work out, it would have to come all the way down and cross this upward trend line. Something that I'm realizing is the higher the time frame that I go, the higher the risk. So if I was trading on the 4 hour time frame, which let's do it, let's go down to the 4 hour time frame. So by coming into the lower time frames, we're able to take on so much less risk. On the 4 hour time frame, we would have only had to risk 950 to 939. So if the price didn't work out, it would only have to cross this upward trend line here. But as you go up in higher time frames, you don't get as much information, you don't get as much touch points, you don't get to see as much ebb and flow in the market. So going back to the daily time frame, the higher up in time frame you go, the higher risk that you're gonna have to take on. This is something that I'm willing to do, especially now that I've mastered that 4 hour time frame. I've mastered kind of this swing trading mindset. So now I'm ready to level up even one more step. And by doing that, I am going into the daily time frame. So just something to consider. The higher time frame that you go up, the kind of less information you have about each individual candle, and you've got more of just an overall view or an overall direction. So when it comes to how I analyze my charts or how I mark up my charts, I'm using trend lines, I'm getting on trend line breaks, and I have bullish and bearish, upward and downward trend lines. So depending on which line gets crossed, the opposing trend line will be the one that mitigates my risk. And since I'm in a higher time frame, a daily time frame, there's much more of a spread between where the price is at in conjunction to the lines, and not to be confused with the actual term spread. Okay, now let's go over the context of the trade and talk about my playbook. So first things first, let's talk about the playbook. I've got two playbooks here. I got a 2 touch point break and a 3 touch point break. As you guys can see, we've got 1 and 2 touch points on this downward trend line. So we are labeling this a 2 touch point break playbook. Now let's go through and see if I followed all of the rules. First things first, entry criteria. Did this trend line have 2 touch points? Yes. We've got a high here back at 1071, and then we've got another high and a pullback around 968. 2 touch points. Boom. Did this trend line have over a week's worth of data, or at least a week's worth of data? So our first touch point is on Tuesday, October 24th. Second touch point is December 26th. Plenty of data on this downward trend line, so we're going to check off, yes, it absolutely has over a week's worth of data. Okay, now the next thing is market conditions. Were we in a trending market or were we in consolidation? We did break out of this consolidation that it was in for most of November and December. The price of platinum was in consolidation. It couldn't break lower than this 940, and it couldn't go higher than this 987. So we finally did break out. We created lower lows, lower lows, lower lows, lower lows. So we were in trending markets. It was trending down, and then we finally got a break of that trend. So we can check off, yes, the market conditions were trending. Now the exit criteria, was the safety line crossed? No. Price moved so aggressively away from my safety line that I actually, when I got into this trade, I anticipated a pullback to then mitigate my risk, come in with a steeper line, but we never were presented with a pullback. It just continued steeper and steeper away. So that's an indication to see, all right, do I use an area of support and resistance? Yes, we've got an area at 989.28, but I actually held through that. The price of platinum actually came through and broke the resistance, where I thought the price of platinum might hit it and bounce off. Now, there were 2 entire days where it did not break through this 989. It got to it on a Wednesday and then started to pull back a little bit. Then on Thursday, got to it again, starting to pull back a little bit. Finally, Friday, today, the price broke through this area of resistance. And oddly enough, this would have been an indication to continue to hold. If it didn't respect this area of resistance and it broke through it, this could be an indication that we are going to continue up. But this was my record trade to date. I closed it. I was up $50,000. I was more inclined to just take the money off the table, close that record trade, and really just sit in the fact that I did it. I finally was able to hold a $50,000 trade. Now, with that being said, the record trade before then was a $40,000 trade. The record trade before that was a $30,000 trade. So I'm working on holding a little bit longer, holding a little bit longer, holding a little bit longer. That only comes with experience and practice. You've just got to work on holding those profits longer, sitting in that profit, letting it continue in your favor, and then closing the trade. But this only comes by experience. That's how I was able to hold a $50,000 trade, was to work up to it. So my record trades in the past, I'm incrementally and slowly holding a little bit longer each profit, each profitable trade, each record trade. So we will say that support and resistance was hit, but this wasn't technically my reason for exit. It was more so because I was up my record amount. Okay, so this is a pretty straightforward trade. The only differences between my normal entry, my normal trading, is that this was the daily time frame. So I took on more risk. How much is more risk? Let's go over it. If the price got to 909.54, I was willing to risk $40,000. So it may not make a whole lot of sense that I risked $40,000 to make $50,000. And I want to show you guys kind of a screenshot of on TradingView, I did a little bit of like not a price prediction, but what might happen and what I'd be thinking if this did happen. And let me kind of show you guys. So best case scenario, I'd still be in this trade. I still think that I closed it too early. So there's always room for improvement. All right, this was the plan of the trade. So if we got a break, I'm thinking taking the entry here, which I did. I'm thinking we're going to get a pullback. I'm thinking I'll be in drawdown for a few days, and then price continues up to this 1056, this 1056. By this point, if something like this would have happened, my initial risk would be still this $40,000, but then I'd be able to come in with a steeper trend line and cut that literally in half, if not more. It could be somewhere between $20,000 to $15,000 if I was presented with a pullback to come in with a steeper trend line. I never was. The price just simply continued up. So this bar right here broke through and continued up steeper and steeper. So I wasn't presented with an opportunity to mitigate that risk and come in with a steeper trend line. So this is the initial idea or the plan that I had for this trade. We were able to get to this 1,000, but the plan of the trade was to hold to this higher level, this 1056. I clipped out much earlier. I clipped out at around 1,000. So my risk to reward would have been a lot higher. And to be honest, since I am trading the daily time frame, I should be holding for weeks. So I'm in a much higher time frame and I'm still kind of working on holding a little bit longer. I will still give myself credit. What an incredible trade. I was able to hold for 50,000. Yes, a very high risk trade. Yes, I was anticipating in cutting this in half as price progressed or moved in my favor. Usually if I'm able to catch a reversal and price continues to move in my favor, my stop loss then will be moved into profit as price continues up. But when you get such an aggressive move and I'm not able to mark up the charts with touch points and pullbacks, I just simply have to use my original trend lines. This was a scenario where the risk to reward doesn't look as incredible. It's not as sexy. It was a 1.2R trade, and I essentially had to risk 40,000 to make this 50,000. Usually I'm able to cut that risk in half as price progresses, and I definitely should have held for much longer. I should still be in this trade right now. But it's really hard to hold past those record trades. I'm working on it more and more every time. A $40,000 trade before, a $30,000 trade before that one, and now here we are presented with a $50,000 trade. I was able to capitalize on 33.86% in one trade. Crazy, yes, I know. It was a $50,000 trade. I held for 4 days. I went long, 20 contracts in platinum. We are on to the next. So I don't want to spend too much time just sitting around and letting this marinate. I want to continue. Yes, even though it's a very big trade, my record trade to date, I don't want this to stop here. So I had to continue to move forward. So on to the next trade. As per usual, I have really big goals this year. I'm looking to make $500,000 to $1 million this year in trading profits. So I can't spend too much time celebrating this. I need to move on right to the next trade. If you want to tag along this journey and see if I can make it to $500,000 in trading profits, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more trendline trading tips and tricks. I'll see you guys in the next video.